you want to make sure you find something to put them down wide awake. And some of my reflux parents are like, well, I have to hold them upright for 30 minutes and then, like bedtime feed, and like, how am I supposed to do this, right? I can help you because both of my kids have been reflux kids. So what you want to do is, because first of all, feeding in any way, doesn't matter if it's breast or bottle, the sucking, especially when they're really tired, makes them so tired, right? Like it really almost gets them over the edge to like be ready for the first sleep stage. Instead, you want to move that bedtime feed before the bedtime routine. With that being said, you ensure that they actually, stay awake, they have an engaged feed. And if your kid tends to be, someone that dozes off, especially on the breast, because usually you have the body to body, it's snuggly, you can do some skin to skin, especially if they had a rough day, they sometimes tend to, feed like this, undress them just into a diaper. If they are a little bit cold and uncomfortable, they tend to have a much more engaged, awake feed. I have done that with my son and my daughter. I think Josie was even worse than Elliot because she had so many medical issues in the beginning. We had to like fully undress her, even for a bottle feed, just into a diaper. My baby does consist 10 hours at night with multiple wake ups. How do I get her to 11 to 12 hours? It can also depend on your baby's age and also total, like their sleep needs. Like I said, they start to kick in more and be more personalized between 6 and 12 months. We do have kids that just do 10 hours, even as close as like 6 to 7 months of age. Also depends on like how good is daytime sleep. Are they getting sufficient amounts of daytime sleep? And also just the fact of like, do you have a self-soothing issue? Do they wake after 10 hours because the melatonin production is low and they're used to being assisted back to sleep? So it just depends on a few factors in your case, Rachel. So yeah, back to nighttime training. So usually I suggest all my parents to move that feed before the bedtime routine. And if you ever feel like my baby didn't actually like, especially breastfed babies, they haven't had a really good feeding session, you can also split feeding sessions. So you could offer one breast. Then if you want to do a bath every night, which is not necessary, you can if you want to, but it's not necessary. We bath our kids every 2-3 days, or obviously if there's like a lot of vomit and spit up, especially with Josie and her allergies, then obviously they get a bath that day. But you don't have to. So you could actually start, feeding them on one side, getting them ready, massage, oil, or just cream them, jammies on, then feed on the other side, and then, maybe a little book, a little like walk them around and talk to them, stimulate them, and then say a good night, put them down awake. Bedtime routines can be very flexible, and I always say it's totally up to you, your lifestyle. Do you have multiple kids? Our bedtime for Josie is not quiet. It's impossible because she has a brother that is literally just 21 months older than she is, and he's a tornado. So our bedtime routine is down here, and she's incorporated in just, our daily life. For her, it's more like she gets a little massage, we put her jammies on, and we snuggle, and there's some light play, and then she goes to bed. And it's more like a 10-minute process. I can't do a huge bathing session with both of them, and then he gets flustered, and she gets hyper in the bathtub. So it's very individual in every parent, every lifestyle. And also just parents, we have parents that just come home with one kid at 5 o'clock and they just have that 1.5, 2 hour time spent. You maybe want to spend that time interacting with your kid instead of being in a dark room, right? So it just depends on you. Just keep in mind, you want to ensure that you put them down fully awake, not drowsy. And like I said, if your kid tends to fall asleep on the breast or on the bottle, undress them and then dress them before you put them down. One thing about swaddles, sleep sacks, and them needing it or not, before we dive into like putting them down, I always recommend get them out of the swaddles before they turn at least 4 months, or if there's any tendency, like even them showing signs of rolling during daytime play, make sure you get them out. I have showed that in a reel where I used Josie as an example. She has been rolling since she was, I think, 12 or 14 weeks, like around that time. You don't want them to be stuck in a swaddle like this and be on their tummy, Don't do it. Also, they need freedom to sleep. And that's also one thing before we dive into sleep training. a lot of parents still have the bedside bassinets. They tend to be pretty small, and that's okay for the newborn stage. That's great because you can put, the side down, you can nurse baby, feed baby, you can have the diaper change even in bed. It's super convenient because you don't have to like get up, you're still recovering. But, past 4 months, we want them to have more freedom in their bed. Usually what we see is when they're 5, 6 months is that they really want the freedom. And I have so many first-time parents that are like, why is my kid, all hyper in bed? They turn around, do 360s, and is that normal? Trust me, it's so normal. My son is all crazy in his crib, and like I said, he's 2 years and 2 months now, so he's 26 months, and it's totally normal. They don't actually start to sleep like we until they are more in like a toddler bed, more at 3, 4 years old, where they always sleep on their pillow and they don't flip themselves up and down constantly. Even when they're in a toddler bed, if you choose to do it earlier at like 2 years, 2.5, they still, flip up and down all the time. This is totally normal for infants and toddlers.